Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's WEConnect International webinar. My name is Maggie Berry. I'm the Executive Director for WEConnect International here in Europe, and I'm delighted that you've joined us for today's webinar, Understand What Your Business is Telling You. Our presenter today is Lyn Man. She's a certified management accountant and a certified professional coach with over 20 years experience working in finance functions within large multinational corporations, SMEs, non-profits, and startups. She started earthAconter, a WEConnect International women-owned business last June, with the purpose to change how we engage with business finances. In today's session, you're going to learn how to use both financial and non-financial information to help you make better decisions that will take your business on the path towards your business vision. To keep background noise, I'm going to ask participants to keep themselves on mute, so please do use the chat functionality if you've got any questions, and there will be time for discussions and questions throughout the presentation and definitely at the end. Lyn's probably going to talk for about 40 to 45 minutes, and the session is being recorded, so you will be able to listen back again. I will just say that the slide mover isn't quite working, so Lyn is going to keep saying to me, Maggie, can you move it? So hopefully that won't be too much of an inconvenience. But Lyn, thank you very much for presenting for us. I will move to your first slide, and the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maggie. Thanks for the introduction and the opportunity to speak today. And thanks to everybody who's listening in, whether live or on the recording. So you would have had a handout that comes to go with the webinar, and these have some questions which you can answer and reflect on either during the webinar or after the webinar. So as Maggie said, this is about understand what your business is telling you. So why is that important? Well, your business finances can be very powerful, particularly when you use them along with relevant non-financial information. Now, you may hear that marketing professionals will say, well, your financials are after the fact, so don't use them. In actual fact, you can't ignore them, particularly not your cash flow, and we'll come onto this more later on. Your business financials give you a full picture of what's going on in your business. They reflect what's happened so far. Next, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. So we're going to be looking at three areas. So how to relate to your business finances and beliefs which may be holding you back, the importance of having clarity on your business's story, and how financial and non-financial performance information can help you. Now, while we go through the presentation, I'd really like you to actually be aware of any reactions you're having in your body. This will start to help you create an awareness of how you're currently relating to your business finances. I'm going to start with two quotes which are going to emphasize why understanding how you relate to your business finances and your beliefs can impact your business. Next slide, please. So the first one is your beliefs pave your way to success or block you. Next slide, please. So the second one is your beliefs become your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values, and your values become your destiny. So you can see everything starting with beliefs will flow through to what's happening in your life. Now, the one word that I really want to focus on is in the middle there, it's the actions. So your beliefs feeding through to your actions. And I just want to show this in the story of how I got here. So 10 years ago, I walked away from accountancy. I'd always wanted to make a difference in the world, and I couldn't see how accountancy could do that. So I retrained as a coach. Then in 2015, a friend of mine invited me to join her company that she was expanding and setting up. And I went in there in the capacity more as a coach. So initially, she did all of the accounts. But as we moved on, it became clear it would make more sense for me to do them. She was fairly stressed out and focused on other areas. So I took them over. They were very simple, but we didn't pay much attention to them. When I had tried to talk to her at times about them, she was focused on other things and stressed. So I just left it. And our real focus was on targets and action. Then last year she came to me and said she really wanted to understand what the business finances were telling her. She said, if I want to grow the business, I need to know what's going on. So I set about developing a training course for her so she could understand more about accounts and the information and what was telling her. And while I was doing this, it really gave me a spark. Actually, maybe it's what I was supposed to be doing all along, kind of bringing all of my background together. So I also read a book about that time, which was called How Accountants Can Save the Planet. So I could suddenly see actually how I could make a difference and how it would help others. I also did some reflecting as to why I hadn't used the financial information more within the business I was working for, because there had been decisions that if we had used the information, it actually would have made a decision sooner. So in my reflection, I looked back to the experiences and beliefs I'd formed while I was working as an accountant within corporate businesses. And what I saw was that, in my mind, finance departments were not really valued, certainly not as much as the sales and marketing and product development departments. And business finances were also used as either a stick or as a carrot. There was a lot of emotions tied into them. And the people who we were dealing with within the business either had no time for the finances or they were just overwhelmed by the numbers. And the final thing was that often the value of the numbers was reduced because the numbers were tweaked to create a story that was purely for the shareholders or the stakeholders. They no longer truly represented what was going on in the business. So as you can see, the beliefs and experiences created a lens, and I was looking at what I did was looking through this lens. Now, the lens also saw that I could see that how emotive business finances were. They're often used, we interpret them as judging us. If we're looking at performance and if we're judged on how we've actually done in terms of our finances, then there's emotion attached to them. They can also be seen as controlling because the state of your business finances actually can drive where you can spend money and when you can't hire and things like that. So we have too much attachment often to these, which hold us back. Now, right now, I just want you to take a moment and just imagine yourself looking at your business finances. And I just want you to notice how you feel. Do you feel nothing at all? Do you perhaps feel excitement? Or is it fear? What is it that you're feeling coming through? Everybody's going to feel something different, but just note it down and just realize that's how you're potentially relating to your finances right now. And I want to give you an example here of how relating to your experiences as a child can actually influence how you relate to your finances in a business. I've just been reading the autobiography of Jo Malone, and she grew up on a council estate, and her parents were very frivolous. They didn't have much money, but when they did get money, it was spent and it soon disappeared. And from an early age, she was very aware of this, and she was actually often involved in generating income, either in supporting her mum's business and creating product, or going out and helping her dad sell in the market. Now, when she had her successful business, she still had these experiences influencing her, and she talks later in the book how that she would actually look at her bank account and she'd be expecting to see the money would have disappeared. So her early childhood experiences still influenced her when she was successful. Now, part of the story behind the success of her business is that her husband was her business partner. Now, he is a detailed person. He was the one that focused on the strategy. He was the one that focused on the business. So that combination together between her creativity and his business nous was what made the business successful. So I'm just going to ask you 3 questions here about your business finances. The first one is, how do you value the information your business finances give you? Then what do you believe this information is for? And finally, what do you believe numbers mean about you? So I just want to reflect on why beliefs impact us. So when we're born, we start absorbing everything around us. And up until the age of 7, we only see the world as through purely just as us. We don't see it as in relating to anybody else. So we can form a lot of limited beliefs before that age. And that's how we start to interpret and experience the world. And we have what we hear in our families, what we hear in culture around us can really influence us. So if we start off hearing that you can't afford this, we can't afford that, then that belief is going to become ingrained in us, and that's going to affect us as we move on. The same thing, it may be instead that you've grown up hearing, oh, you don't talk about money, it's bad to talk about money. And so you start to think of talking about money as being shameful. When we have our beliefs in our mind then looks to reinforce those beliefs. It looks for evidence to see what's going on. Therefore, it's actually impacting our business even though we're not aware of it. These beliefs are subconscious and we don't actually realize how they influence our behaviors until we start to become or to focus on them and become more aware. So if we really want to become aware of what's going on, we actually have to look at our actions and our behaviors and either how we can start to see if there's anything there that's holding us back. Now, one of my clients last year was going through a group program with me, and she suddenly realized partway through that she actually believed that the household was breadwinner. And when she looked at her business, she'd been running it for 15 years, but it had always just kind of moved along very slowly. At times she'd had to invest in it. And when she realized this, she realized how this had been holding her back and how it had been holding her business back. And she went and did some work on this belief, and she changed how she was looking at her business. She changed how she wanted to engage with her business and her business plan and what she was doing. And it's amazing to see actually what has happened within her business since then. So our beliefs are giving us a lens that we're looking at our business through, that we're looking at our finances through, and how we're interpreting that information. So if you think about it, if you look at your finances and you're scared, then actually you're approaching that information from a place of fear. If you look at finances, actually they're providing you with information that you can use to help grow your business. You're looking at it from a place of possibilities, looking to see how you can do things differently. So just taking time to allow any beliefs and just watch your actions and watch the stories that go on in your mind, that's going to help to change how you approach things. Next slide, please. So these next two slides are a list of possible beliefs that you may be holding that you aren't aware of. So what I want to do is invite you to come back and look at these later. They're also in the handout. And just really see how you relate or how you feel when you read through each belief. And that will just help you identify if it's something that actually is there that's holding you back. Now, when you've identified this belief, as I said just before, your mind's looking for things to reinforce it. So what you need to start looking at is actually what's going to be more supportive. What belief would be a better belief for you and your business? And then start to look at evidence that will support that new belief and keep reinforcing this evidence and what you want to believe. Next slide, please. So this is just the second slide, which you can come back to. Next slide, please. So what's your business's story? So every business starts as a dream, an aha moment, a spark, and it then takes on a life of its own. The business story is not the founder's story, it's actually unique to the business. But if it's not strong and it's not fully developed, then it can be influenced by others, and that can take it in a direction that it wasn't supposed to go. So last September, the Harvard Business Review published an article by 3 UK researchers. Now, they've studied 7 organisations that were centennial organisations, including British Cycling, All Blacks, and NASA. And they looked to see what was it that made these organisations stand out, that meant after 100 years they were still going strong and they were still influencing society. And what they found was that these organisations had a strong core with disruptive edges. Now, what I'm going to focus on right now is this strong core and the importance of it. So the strong core is what's safeguarding what you stand for. And that's something that needs to be understood throughout the business you're working and those people that you're engaging with. And it's also with these organisations, it was understood throughout society. Next slide, please. So the story, the core, starts with the why or the purpose. Now, the story is more than this, and it's often the why and the purpose that we're told we need to understand. And if we're clear only on this and not on anything else within the story, then the business can actually become a bit inconsistent, because often the why and the purpose can be quite broad, it's very high level, and therefore open to interpretation by those who engage within the business. So it's then looking at what else is important. So actually, what's important to the business? What are its values? The things that it actually wants to live by? It's what difference does it want to make within the world? The impact it wants to make, and how does it interact with the world? Also looking at how is it going to do this? How is it going to serve people? Who's it going to serve? How is it going to actually live by the values and what's important to it? Then looking at actually more about how it wants to make people feel. How does it want to make those who interact with the business feel about the business? What are the benefits it wants the recipient of its products or service to gain? And how does it want to be seen by the world? When you're clear on these elements of the story, and you ensure that all those who are engaged with the business are clear on those, then it becomes much easier to actually focus your actions and what goes on with the business on these, and then it's clear to the world as to what the business is about. Now, there was a question that was asked, which was attracting new clients and getting the right message in growth mode. Now, I think this, what's really important here is it's the story, and to start to understand the story, be clear on how you're communicating it, and be consistent. If you're looking for potential clients, they need to know what you're about, but they need to understand that your story and what you're about is strong. If you're wavering or if you're pulling in too many things, then it becomes confusing for people. So keep that core, even if you're in a growth mode. What's your story? What's your core story? And focus on that. So how do you know what your business is? Your business story relates to what your business is telling you. Next slide, please. So this is a picture of Mont Blanc, and hopefully you can see the path is zigzagging up, and the little dots are actually climbers. So I would use a mountain analogy for the business. So at the top of the mountain, you have your vision, and you often can't see the pathway to that vision. You know, it may be, if you think of a mountain, you're climbing a mountain pathway going up. It's never straight up the mountain, because that actually is often the most difficult route. It zigzags like in this picture. But you often find that you can be walking in the forest at the bottom of the mountain and you can't see where the path goes. It may be that it's pouring with rain or the mist done, like the mountains my dad dragged me up when I was younger in Scotland. You know, that pathway isn't clear and it's not straight. So that's why we need targets to move us towards our vision. These are our way markers. If you're climbing a mountain, you always have somewhere you're walking towards. And then at that point, you then change direction or move down another path that takes you on your journey. So these targets actually will help you decide what you need to measure. If we look at the Body Shop, it has a 2020 vision, and to get this 2020 vision, it's actually got 14 targets, which are about enriching people, products, and planet. Now, under these 14 high-level targets, it has more detailed targets, which are actually driving the actions of the employees. Now, this is well published and it's well communicated within the business. So everybody's moving on the same pathway, moving towards the targets and therefore ultimately towards that vision. So being clear on your story actually makes it easier to determine what you need to measure. So if we then look at how do you capture that data, within an accounting software, you will have something called your chart of accounts with a list of reference in which you capture the data. Now, the software will come with a standard chart of accounts. What you need to make sure is you're capturing the information that will support you in the right level of detail. So that will often mean making sure that you're capturing the income, not just as income, but by your products and services, so that you can see the right information for you. And the same goes for expenditures. What's important for you to capture? Now, this also applies to other performance, so the non-financial performance information. By understanding your story, you're then able to know which are the key non-financial performance indicators to measure, and therefore that will make it easier to determine what information to capture. And we'll come more into that at the end. Next slide, please. So this slide is something I posted on LinkedIn recently, and I'm not sure how clear it is, but basically at the end, the accountant's answer to what's 2 plus 2 is what would you like the answer to be? And yes, okay, this is very tongue-in-cheek, but actually I can relate to where it's coming from, because accountants are often asked, well, can you make the number this? And when I posted this, an accountant I know who does work for charities and businesses in the arts actually commented that she often had clients coming back and asking could they change the forecast because they wanted to make it look better for the stakeholders. Now, the thing with that is that if you're changing and manipulating your information so it looks better, then actually you no longer have information that's supportive because you don't know what's really happening in the business. The whole aim of your business financials are to actually reflect what's happened within the business and therefore what's going on. Next slide, please. So before we get into the information part, I just want to highlight the fact that money is a tool and it represents an exchange of value. So if we receive cash from somebody, we do so because we've given them value. And the same, if we pay cash to somebody, then they have given us value. So money could just as easily be tokens, say shells, as they used to use many years ago. It is just representing an exchange of value. It is purely a tool. So if we look in accounting tools then, all they're doing is representing the value that has either been received or given. So cash flow, for example, is looking at the value received or given that's being paid for. The profit and loss is looking at the value received or given in the current period. And the balance sheet looks at the value received or given that either has yet to be paid for or that's been paid for and the value hasn't been yet received or given. So simply money and actually the numbers of your accounts are just showing you what is the value that has been received and given within your business. So we're going to start with cash flow. The cash flow problems are the primary reason for small business failures, and they often cause a lot of stress for individuals. And the thing is, if you put your head in the sand and you don't know what's going on, you will feel that stress. Whereas if you start to look at the information, you can actually take control. Now, even if you've got a really cash positive business, it's important to pay attention to your cash flow because it can change as things change within the business and the business market. Now, if we look recent high street failures, we have the House of Fraser and DG Valerie, LK Bennett. These are all large organisations that still failed because of lack of cash. So it can affect any business of any size. Now, what's important to think about is your financial information and how you use it is about creating awareness of what's going on in your business. It's the result of everything else that's happened. And I didn't truly understand the importance of the cash flow until I was financial controller for a small software company. And we were VC funded, we had about 50 employees, and our cash flow in a month was still negative, but we had to make sure we paid payroll. So every week we were sitting there looking to see when money was coming in, when we had to pay money out, and looking to see when we had to draw down on our next line of credit. And it really emphasized to me that actually the power of using your cash to try and minimize the stress and to try and make sure everything's lined up. Next slide, please. So this slide is just a simple cash flow forecast. You can see that it starts with the cash for the bank opening balance. You've got your cash inflows and your cash outflows, and it just flows on this 8 weeks, because that's what could fit on the slide. At the bottom, the net cash flow shows you how much cash you've got left at the end of the week. Now, this is all positive, but it could also be negative in a week, depending on what happens, the timing. And that's the thing to realise is it's the timing of when cash comes in and when cash goes out that's important. So looking at if you have debtors, you give them 30 days credit, making sure they pay within those 30 days. If you don't keep on top of your debtors, you could suddenly have given people 60 days credit. Looking at your creditors and looking at when payments are due is important. I had a friend of mine who told me she recently had a call from a friend who said, "We've got to make payroll on Friday and we've no cash. What do you think I should do?" That's the situation you want to avoid. By understanding your cash flow, by actually getting an idea of what's going on in your business, you can actually plan. You can actually see what's going on. If you suddenly find that a week's negative, you can start to chase your debtors. You can look to delay payments and try and match the cash more accurately. This is something that was really emphasized to me when I was at college, and our financial management lecturer gave an example where he and a colleague had been doing consulting for Aberdeen District Council on cash management, and they told them to extend their payments out to 90 days. And Aberdeen District Council actually implemented that because my lecturer was not paid for 90 days. Now, I'm not saying that that's something you do. For me, if the terms are 30 days, it's something, if you can, you want to honour. However, be aware that larger companies will often take longer to pay, particularly if they're quite bureaucratic or if they have system changes going on. So make sure you understand your customers and understand when they normally pay you when you're managing your cash. So I said before, thinking about cash flow can cause anxiety. This is because if the mind thinks it's out of control, it becomes very anxious about it. So actually, by taking action, by doing something, by looking at your cash balance, by understanding or learning what's coming in when, you can actually reduce the anxiety and help your mind feel like it's in control. The client of mine describes herself as a turtle. So she would hide away in her shell until she felt that it was safe to come out. And the thing with that was she would come out when it was safe, but then she would have to go and look at what had happened. So it was still causing her anxiety. So rather than approaching things like a turtle or an ostrich, approach the numbers with curiosity. What are they telling you? How can you make this, also another way to look at it is how can you try and make it fun and playful? And I know finances are generally not seen as something that's fun and playful, but create that association. Maybe you, once you've done this, you reward yourself with something that you really enjoy. But just create those positive associations to try and make this less stressful for yourself. And next slide, please. So the thing then is to understand what's beneath the numbers. And this is where you use your business knowledge. Don't take the numbers as gospel. The numbers that are coming through are just as prone to error as anything else. And just they represent what's been going on. You know, if you look and see that maybe they don't represent the sales figures you know have come through, what are the customers paying? Or have the invoices even been raised on time? This is where your business knowledge is important to apply to the numbers. Really look up and see how it relates to the non-financial information that you're aware of. Financial information will never make sense in isolation. It's understanding what's beneath. If somebody gives you a sheet of numbers, okay, yes, you might be able to draw some conclusions, but actually you won't be able to really understand what's going on in the business. It's everything else that adds the value to them. So the other thing then is looking at the trends. So what's going to impact your business in the future? Or perhaps it may be if you know your business is seasonal, then you know that you've got cash coming in at a certain time and you don't have it coming in later on, then how do you manage that? I was speaking to somebody who described their cash flow like a blue whale. So basically, they ran an educational training business, and they would get deposits, and then they would have to dive deep, and then they wouldn't get payments until much later on. So they would go for a long time, they would dive deep, and then they'd come up and get the ball of fish. Now, some of their costs matched with the cash coming in. Some of them didn't. They had to pay salaries today in this timeline. So actually understanding the trends within your business, understanding what drives your income and expenditures will really help you. And also looking at what you're exposed to. Now, if we look back 3 years of Brexit, from the time of the Brexit announcement in June through till December, the pound-to-dollar exchange rate dropped by 15%. So that would mean that your expenditures were suddenly 15% more expensive and your income 15% less. Now, if they matched, if you have income dollar and dollar expenditures to match, income and expenditure to match, fine. But if not, that hits your bottom line. So back in 1997, I was working for a company now owned by Thomson Reuters, and we had a lot of business in Asia, and that's the year that the Asian financial crisis took place. And overnight, our business out there halved. Now, part of this was because people could no longer afford the product because it was dollar price, and part of it was because of the exchange rate. So understanding what's behind your numbers and what makes up those numbers will really help you in understanding your business. Next slide, please. Thank you. Here is that cash flow forecasting is an art, it's not a science. And while it might look like, well, you just take these figures, add these on and take those off to get the answer, it's as simple as that because you don't know when things are actually going to happen. So use it as guidance. Don't expect it to be 100% correct. Next slide, please. So going back to within your accounting software, you will find reports such as a profit and loss account, and often there'll be a high level of detail. Now you can customize these to reflect your business. Next slide, please. So you can see here that I've got the income broken out to show more detail, so you can actually see the products and services and the income associated with them. And the same, I've done the same with the salary-related costs. So again, by knowing your story, by knowing what you're measuring, you can then actually make sure that what you're viewing is giving you the information you need to know. The other thing to note here is I've just got 1 year's numbers. As I said before, you need other information to make sense of the finances. So here, I would always recommend putting in the prior year and, more importantly, either a plan or a forecast. The reason that that's more supported is because that's what you're looking at, what you're expecting to happen within the business. And by adding these comparatives, then it helps you to make more sense of what's going on in the numbers. Now, just looking into what this information is telling you, if we look at the line in the middle there, which is the gross profit, and it has the gross profit margin, what that's saying is that after the income and any costs that are related directly to that income, then you have this amount, and here 96,000, to contribute towards the overheads. Now your overheads are costs you're going to still have to pay whether or not you sell anything. Okay, now if your gross profit, therefore, or say your total cost directly related to your business, more like say 80 or 90,000, then actually the amount you'd have to cover your overheads would be much more limited. Now, okay, so people costs, you could argue, may be directly related to the product and service, and some will be. But it's understanding what other costs you've got going on in here. And really looking, again, digging down. So understanding the split between which costs are overhead costs that you have to pay whatever, and which costs are actually only incurred when you make a sale. Now, this also helps when you're focusing on growing your business, so you're growing the income. Because when you're looking at this, it's then understanding if you want to increase your income significantly in one area, then knowing which are the costs that are directly associated to that, and then you'll be able to work out a contribution towards the rest. But also understanding, not just looking at the figures, but going back to say, actually, what are the resources I'm using? So actually, do you have the resources? If you're going to 10x your business, which is a popular phrase at the moment, then you need to understand what's that going to do to the rest of the business. Are you going to need, do you still fit in the same premises? Are you going to need more premises? So by asking yourself these questions, by approaching everything with curiosity, by looking at what do I need to know, this will really help you to manage any business growth. And also an awareness, it may be that you want to grow, but it's going to take a while. You have to develop, say, the product. So it's going to be a while before you actually generate the income. So do you have the reserves to cover that loss? So really looking, as I say, at the information with curiosity and knowing what's going on. Next slide, please. Thank you. The non-performance indicators. So there was some research done by Gecko Board back in 2016. And what they found was that 50% of small businesses did not use key non-financial information. And even a lot of those who did identify it didn't actually track it. And the key finding was that those businesses that did track it, their growth was actually 50% more than the other businesses. So you can see that actually using information can really help you if you want to grow your business. It helps you understand what's going on. Now I've got two things. I've got the results indicators and performance indicators. You may hear people talking about key performance indicators, and they may merge those two together. I've kept them separate for, and I guess, an important reason, because the results indicators actually are looking at things that have happened, a number of activities down the line in your business. So, for example, your contracted sales are the result of a number of activities having taken place, and this could just as easily be customer feedback, the number of widgets produced, or marketing measures, whatever is important to your business. Whereas the performance indicators are actually focused on looking at the key processes within your business. So looking at what is the one thing that, if it doesn't happen within your business, actually is going to impact everything else. So within those key processes, looking at what right at the start of that process, what's going to make the biggest impact on the business, whether it works or not. Now, depending on the size of your organization, it may be something that you have one for each department. If you're small, then it's really focused. If you're one or two people, maybe 10 people, look at what is the key thing, what's the key process that has to happen. I've said here, orders processed within a certain time, because if they're not processed, then that has a knock-on impact on delivery to the customers, then eventually to cash flow and the business reputation. So there's a real knock-on effect going through. Depending on how you market, it could be, if you do a lot of things online, then it could be to do with actually making those social media posts. It could be, if customer relations are important, then it's actually, the amount of time it takes to answer those the customer's questions. Now, as with finances, the information doesn't make any sense on its own. So it's looking at potentially either tracking it over time, setting yourself a target, or looking at industry standards. What information is going to help you to make more sense of this data? Now, the one thing to really be aware of is going back to too much data can really overwhelm you. So in whatever you do, it's looking at what is the key information for your business, and what's right for your business is not going to be right for another business. So what information will really help you in understanding your business and moving it forward? And this also applies to if you're growing your business and looking at business development. It's looking at what information do you need to know, and what information do you know already. So a client of mine recently moved from working part-time on her business to giving up her job and working full-time on her business. So she wanted to see where her clients had come from in the past. And what she did, she just went back and looked through them to see whether they came from social media or whether they came from connections. And what she found was that actually virtually all her clients came from people she'd been introduced to, people she'd met and people she'd spoken to. So in her mind, that was the way forward. That was where her time needed to be focused to develop her business further. Now, you can also take this in another direction, in that you could say, actually, I want to develop another area of reaching clients, and therefore I'm going to spend more time online. It's up to you to work out what's right for your business. Now, in terms of what do you need to know, I'm going to go back to Jo Malone. Now, when they wanted to open a new shop, her husband went and stood outside the shop with a clicker, counting the foot traffic, because to him, that was what's important. How many people walked past the shop? How many people would see the shop? So again, when you're making decisions for your business, really think about what's important to you, what's important to your business, what do you need to know? And that will really help you in deciding which information to focus on. So in summary, next slide. Okay, so in summary, to make effective decisions and to support your business, it's important to understand a financial and non-financial performance information within your business. Now, to decide which information you need to be looking at, you need to understand your story. You need to understand what's important to your business, what it wants to achieve, why it wants to achieve it. And you also need to understand the lens you're looking at the information through. So if you're looking at the information through a lens of fear, then it's not going to support you. So how do you change it to look at it through that lens of curiosity, that lens of possibilities? Thank you very much for your time today and for listening. If anybody wants to reach out to me directly with questions, my email is lyn@earthAconter.com. Also feel free to connect on LinkedIn. My website is there and it should be up within the next 2 weeks. As a final thank you, I have funded a skills training course for a woman in India through B1G1 for the opportunity to do this talk. Thank you.
Lyn, thank you so much. That's amazing. You just covered so many a lot of different areas there. If anybody does have any questions, please use the chat functionality and I'll share them there. But Lyn, if I could start with one, well, actually a comment first. I really liked your mountain analogy.
Thank you.
Not going straight up the mountain, and I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I think a lot of the time, it's like a direct route to the top, to the goal, to whatever it is, and that visual image of the zigzagging, I was like, yeah, that's much more.
Yeah.
So I definitely like that analogy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then just think about this. Obviously, running a business takes up lots of time. If somebody didn't have a lot of time, what would you say would be the one thing or the main thing that you recommend that they do or that they consider?
Yeah, thank you for that. So for me, I'm going to make an assumption that they know their story to start with, because that kind of is the starting point. But there's two things I think I would recommend focusing on an ongoing basis. One is understanding your cash flow, because that's so important with any business, and it can change very quickly. But the other is actually looking to see what is the key process within your business, and what's really important to you. And just identifying one non-financial performance indicator, that would really help in developing your business or growing the business.
Sorry, I put myself back on mute. Thank you for that. Another piece that certainly resonated with me, apart from your mountain analogy, was that approaching finances from a place of not necessarily fear, but let's say worry. That's
yeah.
coming from. And if I wanted to do more, obviously we can reach out to yourself. Are there any online resources? Are you running like more in-depth courses that people could maybe participate in? Are there any, I don't know, introductory level books that people should be looking at? What is there anything else that you would recommend people have a look at? Obviously, aside
yeah.
in touch with yourself and the content that you've on your website.
Yes. So certainly, I'm posting content on LinkedIn, and will be on my website as well. And I'm looking to run a course, hopefully in a couple of months. Is kind of there's a group one that we run over a year, which is looking very much at how you engage with your business finances, but also very practical. So it's coming from understanding the practical techniques as well as understanding kind of the emotional side and how you connect it. So if anybody is interested in finding more information, then please do feel free to reach out to me. There's a couple of books. If people actually, if they worry about finances and it's actually back to maybe about beliefs and money, then a good author to, sorry, just looking for this book. A good author I find is someone called Barbara Stanny, Stanny, I think it is. And she has some books about money, well, actually about, it's looking at what makes women financially successful. So if you think that is kind of what's beneath and what you'd like to look at, then I think I'd recommend her. In terms of other practical, kind of from more the financy side, it's a very good question, and I do know somebody who I'm connected with on LinkedIn who focuses very much on, she deals more with individuals, but do reach out to me if you do have a question on the finance kind of more practical side, because I'm happy to help people out on the individual basis, or I can find some resources that will help them.
Right. Okay. Super. Thank you so much. I've just got another question on the chat. I don't know if anybody has got any questions that they'd like to ask Lyn just now. Obviously, her contact details are there so that you'll be able to, you can get in touch directly. But if there's any questions you'd like to ask today, please do share it here. Jacqueline's just said thanks very much. It was a very rich webinar. And we'll look up, what I'll maybe do, Lyn, is afterwards I'll drop you a note, and if there's resources that you think we should share with the group afterwards, then I can.
Yeah, great. I'll think of some, Maggie.
Yeah, I can get the links from you. And then I'm just going to ask you one more question from my side anyway, which is a little bit. Where's the name of your business come from?
So actually, earthAconter is an Old French word. So the root of the word accounting, but it's an Old French which means to tell and to count. So for me, it's that interaction between, actually, it's all about telling a story, and it's getting people to look at, this is just telling a story.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the earthAconter side comes from. The earth side is that at the end of the day, with everybody's businesses, we have an impact. No matter what we're doing, we have an impact on the earth. So I guess it's like telling the story for the earth.
Wow.
Ultimately.
Fantastic. So I spot there, but I hope you don't mind. Well, I don't think we've got any more questions. There's nothing else come through on the chat functionality, and indeed people, either those who've joined live or those who are listening back to the recording, can get in touch with you directly, either through your email address, or you can find Lyn on LinkedIn. So Lyn, thank you very much. That's been really helpful. I've certainly been scribbling down lots of notes as we've been going through. And I know on the handout there are more detailed, there was lots of different detailed questions on the handout that you shared beforehand as well. And please do let me know and share the details of the upcoming course so that we can share that with everybody.
Great, thank you.
As well. So thank you again. Thank you to all of you for dialing in. I wish you all a very good rest of today. It's Monday. And have a great week, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maggie.
Thanks, Lyn.